Hello, and welcome to SHOPTALK, the insider's guide to transforming your retail business, brought to you by 5x15. In this panel session, we'll hear from Kristabel Plummer and Rosie Davies, chaired by Katie Law, about getting the media on side. Katie Law is a design news writer for the London Evening Standard and is also the Standard's design spy. She reports on trends for the homes and property section and also writes interviews and general features for the paper. Kristabel Plummer worked as a knitwear designer before concentrating on her I Want You to Know blog full-time. In 2013, she was included in the Evening Standard's Power 1000 and has since been featured in Time Out, Stylist, and The Independent. I Want You to Know is written for constantly connected 20-something women who mix and match their brands, seek out Instagram-worthy meals, and are always looking for new experiences. Rosie Davies is the founder and agency director of the London Fashion Agency, the UK's first and only PR agency dedicated to independent brands. In 2015, the agency was shortlisted for Creative Agency of the Year, and Rosie won a Great British Entrepreneur Award. She also recently launched PR Dispatch, a subscription service that helps product-based brands DIY their PR. We'll have time for some questions afterwards. Do enjoy the session and stay with us for more top tips from our retail experts.
Hello, everybody. I'm Katie. This is Kristabel, and this is Rosie. And the aim in the next 15, 20 minutes or so is to give you some really hardcore information for you to take away about how to get a little bit more noticed by the press and how to really present yourselves well, because many of you can do all sorts of other things like designing, making, and selling really, really well, but actually getting the press coverage is a completely different matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Kristabel, who's going to tell you a little bit about what she does and how she's got to where she is now.
So yes, I'm Kristabel. I started my blog 8 years ago when I was actually studying knitwear design. So I do have both perspectives of being like a creative and then sort of going into this new kind of press press area of things. So yes, my blog focuses on fashion, lifestyle, travel, and demystifying the blogging industry. And my thing is, encouraging everyone to make the most of life, but accepting that there may be hiccups along the way, and that's perfectly fine. So yes, that's just a little bit about my blog, and then my social...
Oops, sorry. Sorry, I haven't got the hang of this. I'm going backwards. There we go.
Okay. And then, here's just an example of my social channels. That's a big thing, social media. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, obviously Twitter, and I use each platform in different ways. So
okay, I'm going to stop you there, Kristabel. I'm just going to ask you, for everybody here, how many of you do all the things that Kristabel's just mentioned in terms of Twitter and Instagram, just to get an idea? And how do you all feel very confident about it? Because I think it might be helpful at this point. Okay, you say you don't at all. That we might just pause here and just ask Kristabel just to say a couple of things about the importance of, really what you can do to get onto Twitter and Instagram in an effective way.
Yes, so each platform is about getting across your brand in a different way. So Instagram is very visual. You obviously have parameters, so I tend to think about how my grid looks as a whole rather than just the individual image. I try to edit my photos in a consistent manner so they're all bright. You've also got to work with the caption, so you don't want it too long, but you want to get across, I get across the reality of blogging, so I might have a picture of me looking, posy and fabulous, but then I talk about how I was late for the bus and tripped over and everything, so I try and get a bit of humor across. But with your brand, you may want to give a bit of behind the scenes insight. And then Twitter is more of a conversation, so you might want to take part in Twitter chats or, certain hashtags. YouTube as well, that's a big platform, and you've really got to think about the editing process of your video, beginning, middle, and end. So yeah, each platform is just very different, and it's important to realize the strengths of each. So I think the last slide is just all my contact details. If you want to get in touch with me afterwards, feel free to tweet me or email me to find out about more about what I offer.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. Thank you, Kristabel. Now we're going to go on to Rosie. And Rosie, will you tell us a little bit about your story and what you're up to?
So I started 7 years ago as an intern with an independent brand. They're here today. I can't see them. Hey! Loie and Miss Pom Pom. And on my first day, Bronwyn, the designer, said, "What are you passionate about? You've done textiles at uni. What are you passionate about?" I said, "I love business." And she said, "Have you ever done PR?" And I was like, "I've no idea what PR is." She was like, "Here's a pile of magazines. Email all these people and pitch our knitwear into them." So I started doing that, and I called up a few magazines, emailed a few magazines, and they had a really good collection, and they started to get coverage. And I said, "Well, will you pay me 1 day a week to do this?" And she said, "Yeah." So she was my first ever client. She's still my client today. Hopefully she still loves me. Hey, Bron. And I had no previous experience of contacting magazines, PR, the process, but I did it successfully. We've done it for hundreds of brands, and last year we gained over 300 pieces of coverage. So I know it can be done by someone who has no previous experience. I'll move on to the next slide. So I am the founder of two businesses. The first is the London Fashion Agency. I started that because I kept hearing the same thing from all independent brands saying, "We don't know the process of PR, we don't know what we're paying for, we're paying thousands and thousands of pounds each month." And so we work with independent brands, it's £900 a month, and we basically get their product onto the pages of The Stylist, The Telegraph, Elle, Red, Vogue. And then after I started the London Fashion Agency, I realised that brands still couldn't afford the £900 a month that we were charging, which was a third of the price of any other UK agency. So I started PR Dispatch, which is £39 a month. Brands subscribe. We educate them on how to do their own PR, what assets they need, how to email an editor, and we also explain who writes what features, how they compile it, what kind of products they're looking for £39 a month. So we do all the homework and you do the legwork, and we've already had brands featured in The Stylist, so we know it works, and we hope this is the future of PR.
So actually, it sounds really as though we could just sort of cancel this talk and you just sign straight up with Rosie.
No.
And actually, it's very interesting for me to hear this because I'm at the other end, which is that I'm a recipient of 200 emails a day, literally 200 emails a day, most of which are press releases. And there are, what I just wanted to talk a little bit about, and then we'll go into detail with the three of us, is the good press release and the bad press release. And it's really not very difficult to put together a press release. And this is an example of a good press release because the visual information is completely immediate, and it's got a theme, citrus, it's a good theme. It shows you immediately what the product is, how much it costs, and most importantly, it also gives you the PR details, which is an essential part of any press release. And I'm rather cruel and have also put here a name and shame bad press release, which I don't know if you can read it, but it's generic. It's not sent to anyone. It's just hi there. The importance, which we will come to in a minute, of targeting your audience and knowing who you're sending it to is terribly important. It's also a good idea to get the spelling right, and it's not a good look to send something full of spelling mistakes. So I'm going to open out this conversation both to Kristabel and Rosie and get their views on what they think are the really important parts of publicising yourselves. Let's go back to Kristabel.
Well, yes, so sometimes I do get the exact same press releases sent to me as a blogger, but most bloggers don't actually work from press releases. Like, we need something tangible, whether it may be a gifted item or an event or just, something we can get our hands on. A lot of us want to create our own content. We take our own pictures and we want to tell a story around a product. So I would just say, firstly, get our names right. Sometimes I get Kristabel instead of Kristabel. Don't just send a blanket email. Make sure you've read the blog. Maybe you've followed us on social media and you're already interacting with us, so we get an idea of you. And also make things as easy as possible. Like sometimes I still get emails and there's no link to the brand in question. And sometimes I will Google the brand and it may have a generic name and I can't find the brand, but a lot of bloggers just wouldn't bother. So those are just the basics.
So on that particular thing, so are you saying that you should have the link, a direct link to the brand? And is there anything in particular when you first get a communication from somebody that's going to make you sort of sit up and notice? And if so, what is it?
I think it's just being clear. So maybe you're gifting a product, just know the different challenges that bloggers face. Like I probably get like 100 emails a day, like some days. So there's a lot coming in. If you're offering a product, don't come with loads of expectations perhaps, because some of us get paid for some projects, and if you're emailing about lots of deliverables and there's a specific date you want something published, just understand that would be a project and that would incur a fee. But on the other hand, if you're just gifting and perhaps you say like there's no obligation to post, we may actually be more likely to post it because there's no pressure and we feel like we've been allowed that chance to get to know your brand.
Yeah.
I think just make things easy as possible, be clear about what you want, do your research as well. So if we've already written about you before, maybe put that in the email, like just do a quick search to see if we've written about your kind of product. So that's very important, and just try and understand the point of view of the blogger. So there are magazines like Blogosphere, there are communities like Blogtacular, and there are Twitter chats going on. So I would just do your research beforehand and get to know, what the current blogging issues are.
And Rosie, what would you say from your point of view are the really important things that you're looking at?
When we're looking for brands to work with on a retainer basis, I want them to have decent range of product that's press worthy. I mean, I love a black handbag, but the press are overwhelmed by black handbags. I saw actually a brand, I don't know them, they've got really colourful shoes just down here. That is a great press product. They've got loads of different colours, they fit into loads of stories. So for me, that would be the kind of brand that we'd be looking forward to work with. In terms of approaching the press, you need to read the features you want to be in. It sounds really, really obvious, but it's so, so, so important. Read the feature over and over again, week on week, month on month, and understand the kind of product they feature, what kind of price point, is it dedicated to men, women, understand the audience that publication are writing for. The other thing that I bang on about all the time, that everyone's so bored about me banging on about, is imagery. It's so, so important. People come to me and they say, please get our product into the press. And I say, don't spend any money with me. Go and spend it on your imagery first, because your imagery can make or break your brand. I don't know. Yeah, we are on that slide. So there's two types of imagery you need. One is cutout imagery, which is this. So this is what the press will call in from you to be featured on those shopping pages. It needs to be high res, it needs to look nice, no creases, no shadows. And the other type of imagery you need to draw them in is your lifestyle imagery. If it is fashion and it's shot on a model, it needs to be done professionally. You need to think about location, you need to think about the age of the model, you need to think about the setting. So your imagery is the one thing. If you can't afford a PR agency with a showroom, or you don't already know people in the press, your imagery will sell your product to the press. So I can't emphasize enough how important imagery is.
I would absolutely second that. And when I showed you those two earlier press releases, I think part of the reason why imagery is important is obviously how you see as a journalist how it's going to look on the page. And as Rosie says, if you know where you want to be, in which publication or where online you want to be, you can see how that image is going to look. The other thing I would say, which I referred to earlier, was I have a attention span of about 1.5 seconds, literally, because I've got so much else to do. So if I see something and I like the look of it, I'll think yes, and I'll have another look at it. But, as Kristabel said also, if you have to then go and click on another link and look something up on the website, life is too short. Do the work for us. Make it easy. Put the images right where we can see them. And the other thing I think about having a choice of lifestyle and cutouts is the story, the narrative. You're telling a story, and this is a very, very important part of getting publicity. And I'll go back to Rosie, and perhaps you can tell us your thoughts about getting what the importance of the narrative and the story is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only important for your customer, but it's also really, really important for the press. Like, we work with a lot of ethical brands, and I want each one of them to tell that story through their imagery and through their copy on their website, through their email marketing, through everything they do, and through their social media. So we touched on social media before. Yeah. So this is one of our brands, Make. They're an ethical homeware brand. It's all really clean lines. It's beautifully done. It's very curated. But it is really, really important. We've had editors that have found Make from their Instagram, which is telling a really, really beautiful story. So don't just think of it as you need nice imagery. You need it to be really coherent across your whole brand. And there's one other thing that I always think is really important, is that not every single publication is right for your brand. Actually, very few publications are right for your brand. Everybody wants to be in Vogue who works in fashion. Everybody wants to be in Vogue. But your price point has to be really high if you want to be in Vogue. So if you're retailing something at £30, £40, it's probably not right for Vogue. So just be really realistic at what publications your brand is right for. And don't turn away kind of the country magazines or maybe the weekly glossies if you're selling something for £15. They're probably where your customer is. So just be realistic on which publications you should be targeting.
And so would you both say that referring to something we were saying earlier, that it's a good idea in order to find out where you should be? I mean, my view is that you should go out and do the homework. Go and look in, whether it's in your local, news agents or online. I mean, what do you think about that, Kristabel?
Yeah, in the same way, not every blogger is right for you. So there are some that are just sort of featuring mass market brands such as Primark, and then some that have an affinity for smaller designers and niche brands. I think it's just about getting to know the bloggers, seeing what they are tagging on Instagram, and seeing whether they might be relevant. And also having a cohesive feed is really important, because if your imagery looks great, we're probably following you anyway. Like, I might go and follow that brand that you've mentioned now. And the thing is, when, if I link to a brand on my Instagram, it needs to be cohesive. So if I'm linking to a brand that has poor quality imagery, you've still got the repost logo in the corner, or you've just screenshotted things, my followers are less likely to follow your brand because it just doesn't link up. But if I'm linking to a brand that has really quality imagery and it's a bit, distinctive, they're more likely to come over.
One other thing I'd also like to say about the brand and the story is to give an example, really, really good example of a company that decided they were missing a trick. I don't know how many of you know the brand Melyn Tregwynt, who make, it's a Welsh mill. And they, a founder of it, he's called Efan Griffiths, told a story that he went to New York, and he went into a store in New York and he saw all these quite sort of perfectly nice blankets stacked up in the corner of this home store in New York, and they were being sold as heritage Welsh blankets, handmade, in an ancient mill in the foothills of Wales. Now, this was a few years ago, before PR became as sophisticated as it now is. But he suddenly realized that he had this whole backstory about Melyn Tregwynt that he had never properly investigated, and he then sort of rebranded Melyn Tregwynt as a sort of heritage Welsh, and he told the story about how his grandfather, or I think it was either his grandfather or great-grandfather, had bought the mill at auction, and how the wool was dyed and so on. So there is this element that I think, particularly in the department that I work in, which is mostly homeware rather than fashion, is very often there is a backstory about the manufacturing process. I mean, it could be an ethical story about who is making the products, where they're being made. But I think customers, more than ever, I hear it time and time and time again, want the story behind the maker, behind the manufacture, behind where it's made, the process. So if this is relevant to you, include that in your publicity, and part of that, as well as the cutouts and the lifestyle, have a decent picture of yourself taken in colour. The number of times I've had pictures sent to me of really bad headshots taken on an iPhone, sort of out of focus. Will this do? No, it won't do. Again, I would absolutely support Rosie in saying, spend the money on the photography. And if you can't spell, find a friend who can and get them to check your whatever you're writing for you and make sure that it is properly spelt before you send it. Do you have anything that you else would like to say?
Do you want to go first?
Krista.
Yeah, I think, connecting with the brand story is quite important to me. So a brand I've loved since I was very young is Tatty Divine. And, their thing, it's all made in the UK. It's very unique, very quirky jewellery. And they've kept, everything's been consistent. Like, they employ a lot of women, they support women. So I think that comes across in any interviews. There's great quality pictures of the founders as well. So, yeah, that's like a key example, I think, one of the brands that I support personally and one that really connects with me.
And what about you, Rosie?
I've got two things. Just on the brand story, if you don't reinforce it, people won't remember. So by reinforcing not only to the press but also to your customers, I know with Loey, who I mentioned earlier, they send some really nice email marketings, like where was the new collection made, who was making it, photos of it being hand printed, just to remind people. And it becomes so obvious to you when you're in it that you forget to tell everyone else about it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is on a press note, so when contacting the press, the second you stop contacting them is the second they forget about your brand. They will not remember you if you are not constantly reminding them. They're not mind readers, and they're contacted by so many products and so many brands. So you have to stay at the forefront of their mind. So if you're going to pay out for PR with any agency, you need to be able to do it for a long period of time, not just 6 months. You need to think, this is an investment that we're going to be doing for the next year and a half. Or if you're going to do it yourself, you need to think, right, I'm going to hire someone 1 day a week to come in, to do all the contacting, and they're going to do it for a year, because that's the only way we're going to see the traction. It doesn't happen overnight, and you need to stay on top of it. So you can do it, just keep on top of it.
And actually, added to that, I think I do completely agree and say, in terms of keeping yourself in the eye of the press, think about trends, be aware of trends, and sort of harness the power of the trend to your product. So it doesn't mean that you have to kind of cravenly produce tons and tons of new stuff every year, but you might be thinking about colours or patterns. I mean, a really good walk around the show today would give anybody a brilliant idea of what the trends are, and you can use those. And that press release that we saw earlier was a citrus. Well, I mean, it may well be that they just pulled together kind of all the yellow and orange stuff that they had been selling for the last 18 months. Doesn't matter. It feeds really well. So if you're going to try and keep getting publicity on a regular basis, do be aware of what's going on around you and what's now, and keep refreshing, keep refreshing. I think we've probably said enough. I certainly have. And would love to take some questions from any of you if you've got some. Yes. I think we'll have to wait. Somebody will come with a microphone.
When you say about keep constantly contacting the press, how often should you be doing that before you become irritating?
That's one for
Well,
you.
it's a very difficult one to answer because I would say in general it's not worth ringing up on the phone because people are really busy. But having said that, very, very occasionally it is worth following through. I think if somebody hasn't answered sort of third time, then best move on. I mean, I do try and answer emails, but I don't always succeed. But it is definitely worth following through, I would think, with a second email sort of 2 or 3 weeks after you've sent the first one. Any other questions at the back there?
When you said about the quality of pictures, can you give us an indication of, you know, the what quality you would expect? Thank you.
So usually we're asked for 300 DPI. You don't want to bombard poor editor's inbox, but you could send them by WeTransfer. Depends how many images they ask for. Is that how you usually?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, usually prefer them. So you can send them by WeTransfer. They need to look amazing. There's places in London that do cutout photography that can help you make them look amazing. And if it is fashion, it needs to be shot correctly. So I always use Net-a-Porter because, let's be honest, they know what they're doing. So I always use them as an example. How are their blouses shot? How are their jumpers shot? How are their trousers shot? Are they are they filled? Or are they shot flat? I always use them as an example because they shoot stuff pretty beautifully. So make sure you're shooting it in a way that the press can actually use it on a page.
And what would you say, Kristabel, for your purposes?
I think, quality is definitely important, but a lot of us bloggers will take our own images. So if you were able to gift a product, we might do a flat lay. One trick I use is using colourful backgrounds. So even if you have, if you're producing your own imagery, I will buy sheets of colourful paper and shoot things flat on there. So maybe look at what the bloggers are doing, see what trends that we have. There's a lot of rose gold, Monstera leaves as well. So if you have rose gold on your Instagram, you're bound to get us following.
And I would just add to that, particularly with Rosie, WeTransfer is great because it doesn't crash the inbox. But also, if you're asked to send four images, do send 4 images, don't send 40. It's incredible how many people will send sort of everything they've ever photographed, and you then have to wade through the pictures. So always try and make it as easy as possible for the journalist.
Okay. Hi. In terms of like the PR pitch in a story, do I have to have a developed story when I contact an editor, or can I just say, hey, we have a new product and here are the pictures that we have of it? I mean, how developed should that initial contact be?
I think so, because we only do product placement. So we only do those products that you see on shopping pages and editorial. We don't do kind of features about the brand. So for us, the story is important, but the product is more important. But you need to think, what does your website look like? Do you look like an established brand? Do you look like you've got some sort of story in place, even if it's not your kind of developed story, if you like? Does it look like a professional brand? Is it somewhere where people would want to shop? For product placement, we find that's what the press are looking for. If you want more of an editorial kind of focus, then you need to be able to portray your story to them.
Yeah, I think that's right, especially if you're new, because you might have a really interesting story, and all journalists crave novelty, and they're always looking for the person or the product that somebody else hasn't got. So a new store, a new product, a new designer, there's no harm in putting a bit of a developed story, because the worst that can happen is it gets ignored. But somebody might read it, like me, and I might think, oh, they sound really interesting. I think I'll do a follow-up, and I might even decide to do an interview with them. So it's always worth doing.